So one of the biggest advice I always give entrepreneurs, male, female, it doesn't matter, is you have to marry right. Like if you can marry a lot of money, that'd be fantastic, but that wasn't my case. Nor my wife's, by the way. But there's so many people that I'll mentor, and they just can't get to the next level because there's no support at home. And it's a shame because they're so intelligent and they've got the right motivation, but they're always pulled back because of a lack of an understanding what their soul needs to be fed on. And taking risks in entrepreneurship, that's a soul. We need to feed it. And one of the biggest things I do is I like to motivate people to chase their dreams and go for it because you only live once. And picking the right partner is so critical. And don't get me wrong, there's ups and downs. In fact, I exited because I was heading for a divorce. And that's part of the reason why I exited a little early than I probably wanted to. But the bottom line is I got to where I was because my wife understood what I needed to feed. And she's my business partner. And now my kids understand it. And they work. And we create a work ethic within our family. But they understand, foremost, that that's your life as an entrepreneur. Okay? That's been my life for 37 years. The ups and downs, you're flying first class one day, and you're taking the Priceline ticket that you don't know what time you're going to get on the airline or what airline it is, right? Because it's $150. And it's hard for a family to understand that. So you got to pick the right one and build the right one. That's probably the biggest advice I can give to anyone. So we jump to the end of the presentation. 37 years, my first business was when I was in high school. It was a boat waxing business, and it was right here on this property and all over this town. This property was not what it is now. It was not that in the 80s. And so we did bake sales at Stewart's, and we would make like $45. So I created a boat waxing business where I paid the class $45, and they would wax a boat for me for $300 or $400. I would charge a client. So that was my first capitalist move. Okay, I started an internet company when that was the website. That was when you logged on to a website, that's what it looked like. Okay, and then eventually, an exciting venture was our Food Network show that we're currently still now producing other content. The day that changed my life was this article. This is literally the article. It was August 5th, 1998. I'm working at Calvin Klein Jeanswear with my wife. Then I was really trying to pursue her, and it didn't work out until we took some chances here. So the reality is I could not sit behind an office. I was at Calvin Klein. I was 27 years old, and I was making a lot of money. This is when the ads were considered kiddie porn, all that press that went when Calvin got really risque, and the brand blew up. So as the parents said, you can't wear Calvin Klein, our business went from $50 million to $500 million in 18 months. IPO, all that jazz. And I happened to be very good at technology, access database, so that made me skyrocket my career. So when I saw this article, I walked into my boss's office and I resigned to go start an internet company selling clothes online. 1998, because Amazon's expanded beyond books. So they were they had a big impact on my life. So my boss was my first investor. That day, he wrote me $1 million check. That day. He literally could not believe I was resigning. I was on a fast track. I was in charge of all the technology integration and sales, and I ran all the majors, Macy's, et cetera, et cetera. So leveraging technology to move up in the world, that's probably another advice. But so he ended up writing me a check. He was my first investor. And so everything's great, right? I'm going to be a billionaire. I'm going to be a billionaire. And so the internet's going to change the world, and I'm going to help be part of that catalyst. Well, not so fast. Amazon moving beyond books, which was toys and some other hard goods. The world was not ready to embrace e-commerce. Now, this was when I started the company, just so that we're clear here. Uh-oh. Okay. So it's not going to work? Well, that's it. Remember, a whole lot of people probably don't know, but back in the day, you'd have to dial on your telephone, and it would make a really annoying noise, okay? And it would look for a connection. That's when I started a company that was going to change the world and sell clothing online that requires an enormous amount of bandwidth to view clothing, okay? So the internet's dial-up, Amazon's books, and then what happened in 2000, right? We had the first internet crash. So quickly, this $1 million got eaten up. And fashion icons were quoted over and over, we will never, ever sell apparel online. Well, now what? What do you do when the world's not embracing what you see so clearly as the future? Sometimes you can be too early. That's probably another lesson. Something happened. The world of fashion began to shift pretty quickly. Reality TV started being a thing that was captivating consumers. And then urban fashion was a brand that you could only buy in certain stores in certain communities. It wasn't carried at a mass level. So seeing this and watching Orange County Chopper on TV and having probably $300,000 or $400,000 left in the bank, we had to figure out how we were going to pivot, what we're going to do to transform, and how am I going to live out this dream and be part of the future of where we are today. Well, we had to go convince this new genre of apparel, i.e. products that you see on TV, T-shirts that are being worn by reality shows, and the urban world, that the internet was the future. Well, the good news is they listened, they were young. So we just had to identify a market that we could sell to that was young, not picking on old people, but as we get older, we don't, we have wisdom, but we're losing track of pop culture. So these young CEOs understood technology and had, a passion for phones, and they saw that one day this would be our future. So we found that market, and from there, we built our company. So we had to figure out who would go online, who would listen to us, and who would take a chance to give their business and their brand. Now, they're giving us our brand. Now, as this is happening, we have a company called Cyber Retail, which was, it was Amazon. We sold everything. It was clothing, shoes, et cetera, but we really could not market it because Google wasn't around. And Yahoo, if you paid them money and you sold fragrance, you could buy Calvin Klein jeans keywords. Google's the one who changed the relevancy game, right? So marketing, I had to go traditional, and it's hard to compete in fashion to drive traffic to a website against the big fashion houses. So we decided to go after brands that had their own mechanism of PR and marketing and TV shows and leverage their name and drive customers to their traffic. So we pivoted our first company into a back-end, full facilitator of e-commerce. And these brands right here is what I owe everything to, because they took a chance and they saw the future. That got us here.
You've built a fashion empire, a force to be reckoned with. Now it's time for your next conquest, the internet. An e-commerce process born for fashion, conceived by those that live fashion. We're custom tailored to the needs of the fashion industry. Not sporting goods, not electronics, strictly fashion. Stripped of the constraints of brick and mortar, your brand achieves global reach through the fabric of the eFashion Solutions platform. It's time to take your line online.
So now we had to convince the fashion industry that they can leverage and go direct to consumer. And it worked. We raised...
No, seriously. Why are you not investing?
There you go. So from there, we raised $30+ million in private equity. We had probably too many investors on our board as well, Eric. And we thought we made it. That's it, right? Rock and roll. We're going to be billionaires. Liquidity event in the second round of funding. A big advice: if liquidity is offered, to take it off the table, grab it as fast as you can, because there's other opportunities down the line that you could leverage that money with. So we did take money off the table. We're one of the first e-commerce companies to do so, thanks to the Reitler firm. They helped us negotiate a very lucrative deal for ourselves. The third party, we 3x'd our revenue in 24 months. We had 280 employees, 50 million in sales, and then the banking crisis of 2008 comes, right? So the lesson I always tell everyone: get ready to change when it comes at you, because things don't go as we often plan. And now what do we got to do? Now we got to rebuild the company back up. So we did 2 acquisitions, reverse mergers. Our investors participated in it, and then we exited the business. Once we built it back up to the $50 million in business, because the valuations were great in e-commerce, et cetera, and it worked out in the end pretty good. I don't have billions. I don't have the 1.405 billion, okay? Now, part of the problem we had during the 2008 crisis was our clients would have to give us inventory, and we would buy ads to their websites to send customers, and that we needed inventory to fulfill orders. Well, the banking crisis froze that up, and that's what created the company to decrease in sales about half. Now, post-boardroom. Boy, I thought, and since Eric went before me and said a few risque things, I decided to add this. My wife would kill me. By the way, they'd kill me anyway. They knew this picture of them were up there on the screen. So we exit. We're doing pretty well. We're done. I'm young. And I go downstairs with no clothes on. My wife goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're retired. We're retired. Let's rock and roll." She goes, "Yeah, no, go get a job." So we had different versions of what retirement looked like. Okay? So, to my disappointment, that wasn't what was in her head. Okay? Now, I will tell you that timing is everything. We were way too early. We were exhausted. By the time I always say the surfboard. You're out, you're paddling, you're waiting for the wave, and you know it's coming. Can you have enough energy when it gets to you to ride that wave? And when I talk to young entrepreneurs, I always say, yes, it'll happen, but when? And can you muster everything you have in you to survive until the wave gets there and then ride that wave? It's exhausting. All of us entrepreneurs in the room know that. There's other things that can benefit you in timing. And to give the private equity, the investor, advisement a plug. If it wasn't for my financial advisor, I would not be where I was. I had good exits. They weren't great, but they were good enough to leverage. And you're too damn busy to count your own money when you're working 90 hours a week and taking chances. You're dealing with a board you got to report to, and hopefully you're spending some time with your family. The advisors that I had in my life, my timing was fantastic. I made more money with those IPOs than I did in my exit. Okay? So timing is everything, and you got to be aware of what's going on in the outside world and not have so many blinders on that they distract you from opportunities that will change your life. That's probably the biggest lesson that I can share there. That allowed us to open the Chateau on the Lake. By the way, I graduated from this school right here, but I graduated top 10 out of 11 students. Okay? My first board meeting, our investors, you had to graduate from an Ivy League school, or you had to be top 10 of a specific, either college or high school. My first board meeting, I had on there, I'm dyslexic, which they already knew because I spelled negotiation wrong on a rebuttal, which I didn't know until this board meeting. I said ADD, I can never sit down. And then 3, top 10. And they were like, what's that top 10? So you got to ask in your future when you're writing big checks, ask them how many kids they graduated with. Mine were 10. Or 11, so they got a kick out of that one. Okay, I wanted to go to culinary school. My father owned restaurants, and my dream was to be a chef. And my father forbade it. He did not want me in a business. So when we exited the business, I opened a restaurant right around the corner here at the Chateau on the Lake, and I decided to follow my passion instead of the money. And from there, I've had an incredible journey. I ended up picking up a TV show. And I was literally on my knees praying because my family wanted first class again. And if they want it, I got to go take some more chances because they go to very expensive high schools, expensive colleges. My mother-in-law is not cheap, okay? So we need a balance here. So the first class tickets and all the fancy vacations to Italy, I got on my knees and I said, God, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing running a restaurant, working with my wife, side by side, working with my daughters, teaching them a work ethic, and nobody sees it but me? What do I do? Am I at the right place? I can go back to Manhattan, I'll call that up, I'll go start another company, I'll raise money, and I'll work 90 hours a week and provide, because I can do that. Literally the next day, the Food Network contacted me, out of nowhere. So another lesson is, you're usually exactly where you're supposed to be. Just open your eyes up and give it a little bit of time, and ask for a little help. Sometimes you just got to get on your knees. Okay? Now, this is our TV show. I'll give it a little plug. This was so fun.
Here in Lake George, being competitive,
So this is right here.
It's the only thing that's going to
This is
keep
where
your
you are.
restaurant open. We all live and die by our summer tourist season.
We're running out of food, we're running out of desserts. Things are crazy.
We get tens of thousands of visitors each summer. It's gorgeous, but it's dead here in the winter. This place freezes over. So if you want to survive the winter, you got to do the business in the summertime.
We're the Foys. Our family has 3 individually owned restaurants in the heart of the Adirondacks on Lake George.
My name's Buddy Foy Jr. I'm the proprietor of the Chateau on the Lake, along with my wife, Jen. We're going after the foodie in international flavors.
The Chateau is the Chateau. They got fancy dancy, this, they got that. Kate's is a real deal.
My parents own Kate's Italian Garden, and it's right up my driveway.
People say, Buddy, why is it so good? Because it's the sweat off my brow, and it's all from my heart.
My younger brother, Jesse, the good-looking one, he owns Diamond Point Grill, a burger and fish joint.
I'm not the biggest restaurant, so I have to push the envelope. I put my life savings into this restaurant,
And I'm at that breaking point, and I feel it.
you're out of your mind!
We have to make enough money between the 4th of July and Labor Day to last us the entire year.
Winter is coming, and it comes fast.
That was fun. Thank you. Thank you. That was a gift. That's a blessing. It was so fun.
The Foy family
Oh, what am I doing here?
is back up.
Okay. So I look at life in seasons. Young and naive, season 1, and go for the end zone. You got the energy, you got the passion. Don't let anyone tell you no. And I was fortunate that I had a supporting family. And when I say that, my wife, as well as my parents, they're entrepreneurs. And Jeff knows what my father did really back in the day as an entrepreneur. It's legal now, let's just say that. Okay? And he's so pissed about it. Now, 2, leverage. Right? Season 2, you're a little older, you have some wisdom. What can you leverage? What relationships can you leverage? What finances can you leverage? What businesses can you leverage? And put the work in. Season 3, I like to look at I'm in season 3 right now. I just want to be an example to my kids. I want my kids to have a work ethic. I don't want them to take anything for granted. And I want to show them that whatever life throws at you, you just got to deal with it. You got to run through walls. And sometimes it doesn't matter what's on the other side of the wall. If you don't run through it and you constantly study it, someone else is going to run through it before you. And they're going to take what's on the other side of that, and it's going to be too late. Okay? Now, I started my own production firm. COVID shut the production down. So we decided to start a production company to film COVID and our journey. And we had no idea what we were in for. Okay? And we're currently negotiating talk about slow, medical. Eric being slow and tough to, whew. I mean, these guys are filming with analog, cameras that are a $500,000 camera 25 years ago, and it's taken them, and they got to FedEx data to California to edit it. So the industry is very slow. They want repeat. They want new, but in the end, they just want another concept that's got a different dress on it. Okay, so it's fun to negotiate with them, and so we decided to start our own production company, and we've got 3 seasons filmed, and we just might stream it on our own or start our own network. We're meditating on that as we speak.
Get ready. The Foy family is back. The restaurant industry is back up and running.
It's our Florida
Supply
restaurant.
chains have yet to return to normal, and challenges are greater than ever. But we all know that won't stop the Foy family. Since COVID, the fight for survival
You gotta
has
have
been
some fun.
intense. New York's heavy restrictions made it impossible to operate. So the Foys decided to pivot to the great state of Florida. New drama.
You sure you want partners, or you want this? 100%. You sure? Is your attitude says you don't.
New challenges. Owning 3 restaurants on Lake George in New York was simply not enough.
We did it. Came out of the wire, but we got it done.
Will they keep their 45-year legacy alive?
Okay. Thank you. Now, unlike Eric, my brother and I do not get along. That was my brother in that argument. And after 6 months, we bought him out. And I love him to death. He's just not an entrepreneur. Some of us aren't, right? Some of us aren't. okay? What matters? We can't control external factors. They're just outside of our control. COVID. If that didn't teach us that, nothing will. ROI. I live my life on this one acronym, okay? Return on involvement. We can all make, once you get there and you're smart, you surround yourself with the right people, you have the right advisors, you're gonna make money. But what do you wanna be involved in when shit hits the fan and you're down and out and you don't see your family, you're working 90 hours a week, you're traveling to save whatever you're saving, whether it's technology, a client. I mean, I've spent nights in data rooms, literally slept in data rooms, because a lot of the lessons here learned is you do the work. Even though I'm not a hardware guy, I slept in data rooms when servers were down during the holidays, so that my hardware programmers and my server guys, right, would see that I'm there with you. By the way, that's just pre-Amazon. We started all this pre-cloud and all that, okay? But return on involvement, right? I live my life on this. I learned this from an Uber, well, car service is pre-Uber. I'm going to California. We're meeting with our banker that we're selling our company, and we decided to go to the wine country, and I'm on the phone constantly. And the driver grabbed me. He goes, "Can I talk to you?" He goes, he was an investment banker. He goes, "Now I drive, I do car service to get out of the house." And a lot of us that have been married for 25 years can understand that, okay? So I completely did not relate at the time, but I do now. And he grabbed me, he goes, "Listen, you're with your wife, you're in Napa, and you're on your phone stressing her and yourself out. Relax. ROI, return on involvement." And I did. It was the best advice I've ever gotten. And I've lived my life with that ever since. So I do things that feed my spirit, that feed my soul, and hopefully impact my community and my family. I have a lot more faith. I had a lot of Jewish clients in the fashion industry, and I was always amazed how I had to leave the room because they would pray. They said, so I learned faith through observation of a different faith. I just kept reading the book, right? I just keep reading. I go past the Old Testament. And so faith is something that I didn't have a lot when I first started, that I have now, and man, does it help you with ROI. That's the biggest advice I can give everyone. Don't be afraid of your faith. Embrace it. And by the way, we're all sinners and we all make huge mistakes. In the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Live right, be conscious, serve your family, and serve your community. Community to me was always like where you lived. And I've learned it's not. We're community, okay? I'm here with Ed because we're community. We don't live in the same zip code, okay? I decided to serve the restaurant community during COVID and became a very advocate, outspoken, crazy person, screaming at the camera and at mayors throughout and governors throughout the country, because we served 33,000 people because our show aired. We had tables that were 6 feet apart. We got really good shape that year. My servers were it was like a cross-fitting exercise. We did an enormous amount of money because our TV show aired during the shutdowns. And then once New York opened up with all these restrictions, we did very well. And we served an awful lot of people. It worked. No one got contact traced. There was a way to operate. And I was hell-bent on helping other restaurant owners, my community, get open. So I became a national spokesperson. No restaurant association, no entity would do it. Nobody would get on camera and say, "Open up." I did it because I saw my restaurant colleagues lose everything, generations. I happen to be in a zip code in the Adirondacks that could open up, whereas you couldn't in Manhattan, which I'm sure a lot of you saw. There was a way to do it, and we're regulated by alcohol and health. And if you're throwing parties and you're not social distancing and you're just ignoring the laws, they've already got feet on the street to shut you down. So that's why I had 34 appearances on national news, CNBC and Fox constantly. And so that's my community. And that's what serving your community, I think, looks like. My wife still thinks we're going to be audited any minute. She's probably right. So now that the COVID's over, I say no to most of the requests to go on the TV. Okay? If you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate it. Okay? As we're negotiating with networks, I'm finally getting back. We opened 3 restaurants during COVID in Florida. We document it here. And it was just really, and it was an example for our kids on how to overdo adversity. So I showed you the roller coaster in the beginning, and you can see it play out in real life here. I have a podcast. It's pretty controversial. I like to take a point of view that no one else has in a room just to see what happens. It's actually my personality profile. I will debate anyone that has an opposite point of view than me. And the funny thing is most people don't say, well, what do you really think? Most of the time I agree with them, but it's funner to argue. Right, Eric? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.